1976. The 1976 vice presidential debate took place between Senators Walter Mondale of Minnesota and Bob Dole of Kansas. Walter Mondale argued that we are in a bad economy of inflation, with over 8 million people who can't find work. Nixon and Ford's administration cannot fix anything, and also over the last 8 years, Republicans have made the economy worse from the White House by doing nothing for the American people. Bob Dole, on the other hand, accused Democrats like Lyndon Johnson and Jimmy Carter of lying and cheating, and spending money on expensive government programs, and we instead need faith in the American people to figure things out. Mondale said he will work with the president to make the vice presidency more important in order to reorganize the government from corruption and do programs that will restore America around the world. The 1976 presidential election was a close one that put many people on the edge of their seat due to the polarization of the economy. In the end, Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale won. Mondale's campaign would go on to transform the vice presidency, including being in a symbolic vice presidential position, establishing an office in the White House working with the president, and doing high international meetings that expanded the vice presidential position. 1984. The 1984 vice presidential debate featured a historic matchup between George H.W. Bush, the sitting vice president, and Geraldine Ferraro, a congresswoman from New York. This was notable for Ferraro being the first woman nominated for vice president by a major party. As the debate began, the nation was enjoying an economic recovery under the Reagan administration. Bush defended the policies that fueled the economic growth, claiming that we have restored the American spirit and rebuilt the economy. Ferraro countered it, emphasizing that many Americans were still struggling, stating that there are millions who are not sharing in this prosperity. She called for a government that prioritized the needs of all citizens, not just the wealthy. Despite being the first woman nominated, polls say that the majority of women favored the Bush-Reagan economy over her historic candidacy. She said in response that she does not believe in polls, which turned off lots of voters. The debate heated up as Ferraro challenged the Republican stance on wealth distribution, arguing that tax cuts often left working families behind. Bush warned that Democratic policies can lead to tax increases, potentially shifting economic growth. In the end, despite the conflicting debate, Bush and Reagan secured a decisive victory, winning 49 out of 50 states, which reinforced Republican dominance in American politics. Their success resonated with voters who preferred the optimistic message of recovery and staying away from the high taxes under the Carter years. 1988. The 1988 vice presidential debate featured a memorable showdown between Dan Quayle, a young senator from Indiana, and Lloyd Bentsen, a seasoned senator from Texas. This debate is best remembered for one unforgettable line that would echo through political history. As Quayle attempted to establish his credentials, he drew a comparison between himself and John F. Kennedy, stating, quote, "I have as much experience in Congress as John F. Kennedy did when he sought the presidency," end quote. Bentsen, recalling his own experience with Kennedy, quote, "Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy." The impact was immediate. Bentsen's sharp statement cut to the heart of Quayle's inexperience, reminding viewers of Kennedy's dynamic leadership and charisma. Bentsen, having served alongside Kennedy, wasn't just making a point, he was invoking a legacy that still resonates in American politics. The aftermath was telling. While Bush and Quayle eventually won the election because of Bentsen's running mate Michael Dukakis not performing well, Quayle's campaign suffered from the perception that he was outmatched. The phrase, "You're no Jack Kennedy," would follow him throughout his political career, casting doubt on his presidential aspirations and preventing him from being taken seriously as a future candidate. 1992. The 1992 vice presidential debate brought together a unique trio: Dan Quayle, the current vice president, Admiral James Stockdale, a former naval officer and independent party nominee, as well as Senator Al Gore of Tennessee. Known for its lively atmosphere, the debate focused on critical issues of the time. The candidates tackled the trickle-down economics. Quayle defended the Republican approach, claiming it had created job growth. Gore countered with a point saying, "Are we focused on other countries instead of the people right here at home?" This highlighted the Democrats' emphasis on domestic issues. In response, Quayle accused Gore of pulling a Clinton, trying to undermine Gore's credibility. However, this showed Quayle's own struggles to connect with voters. The discussion continued with Quayle and Gore debating tax policies, while Stockdale remarked, "America is seeing why this nation is in gridlock," stressing the need for balanced budgets and better investment to foster entrepreneurship and job creation. Gore highlighted that Bill Clinton's state had been number one in the private sector job creation for 2 years, contrasting it with the 1.4 million manufacturing jobs lost under the Bush and Quayle years. He challenged them on using taxpayer dollars to spend American jobs over the seas, which they've been doing for recent years. Ultimately, the 1992 election marked a significant turning point, as Bill Clinton and Al Gore won. This election reflected a desire for change and a renewed focus on addressing the needs of everyday Americans. 1996. The 1996 vice presidential debate featured two notable figures: Vice President Al Gore, a seasoned politician and environmental advocate, and Jack Kemp, a former congressman and housing secretary. This debate stood out for its tone and discussion on the economy. Kemp opened by emphasizing decency, stating that we don't see Clinton and Gore as our enemies, but as our opponents. We are the greatest democracy built on integrity. He cited Abraham Lincoln, stating that you serve your party best by serving the nation first. Kemp stressed the importance of a free press and asserted that the American people should decide their next leader with dignity. Gore responded positively, thanking Kemp for the respectful answer. This lighthearted exchange set the stage for the differing views on the economy, with both candidates acknowledging that many American people are satisfied with the current climate. It's just Kemp believed there could be more done. Kemp argued that the economy was overtaxed and overregulated, suggesting that lower taxes would create more economic growth and jobs. He painted a picture with less regulation. Someone can open a new factory with lower taxes, and says Gore will call it trickle-down economics, while Kemp calls it Niagara Falls, and businesses would thrive. Gore countered Kemp's plan would instead put the economy in a barrel and send it over the falls. Gore criticized it as a $500 billion tax scheme that would raise taxes on 9 million Americans and threaten essential services like Medicare and education. Ultimately, this debate was marked by policy over personal attacks, showcasing two candidates who maintained a respectful tone while contrasting their economic philosophies. The 1996 election resulted in a decisive victory for Bill Clinton and Al Gore, winning in a landslide. This success not only expanded Clinton's presidency, but also significantly enhanced Gore's influence within the Democratic Party. Gore's advocacy for environmental issues, particularly climate change, gained momentum during this period, popularizing the importance of climate education in schools and setting the stage for future efforts in raising awareness about climate change. 2000. The 2000 vice presidential debate took place between Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut and former Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney of Wyoming. Lieberman argued that significant progress has been made in recent years, emphasizing the budget surplus. He stated that we are going to use it to invest in education, proposing to 1.6 to 1.8 trillion in tax cuts to recruit 100,000 teachers to reduce classroom sizes, and ensuring students weren't learning in crumbling facilities. The discussion shifted to military issues. Cheney argued for a robust military presence, assessing that we have to rebuild the U.S. military, while Lieberman praised the military's transformation to address modern issues, mentioning the importance of adapting to challenges like cyber warfare. Lieberman also emphasized the need for a peaceful resolution in the Middle East, expressing hope for a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine. Cheney supported military readiness in the region, declaring that the U.S. must maintain a firm stance, including taking out Saddam Hussein if weapons of mass destruction are found. In energy policy, Lieberman opposed drilling in the Arctic, stating this is one of the most beautiful places and it's not worth the possibility of 6 months' worth of oil. He advocated for investing in alternative energy and new technologies. Cheney acknowledged the importance of energy independence, but argued for responsible drilling practices to help the energy sector. The 2000 presidential election was highly competitive, with both campaigns bringing unique perspectives to the forefront. Ultimately, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney emerged victoriously, but narrowly by flipping 11 states Republican, including barely winning Florida within the Supreme Court. George Bush and Dick Cheney's victory in 2000 made the 2000s a conservative deregulation decade, along with high use of the military. 2004. The 2004 vice presidential debate featured incumbent Vice President Dick Cheney and Senator John Edwards of North Carolina. A central theme was foreign policy post 9/11. Cheney defended the Bush administration's action in Iraq, asserting that we did in Iraq was exactly what people wanted. The world is safer with Saddam Hussein in jail, and he claimed military successes in Iraq were crucial for national security. Edwards countered, stating that the vice president still is not being straight with the American people. He criticized the rising casualties in Iraq and the lack of a coherent plan, and calling for a fresh start under John Kerry with better military training for the Iraqi forces. Cheney accused that the Democrats had a limited view of military power, accusing Kerry and Edwards consistently opposing strong defenses on the military. He claimed a little tough talk cannot change a record of 30 years being on the wrong side on the defense. Edwards maintained that the administration misjudged priorities, emphasizing we were attacked by Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and instead this administration diverted attention to Iraq. He stressed the need for honesty about the war's consequences. The debate highlighted the deep divide in U.S. politics over foreign policy. Cheney's support for the Iraq War and the broader war on terror reflected a commitment to confronting threats. The Bush-Cheney ticket won the 2004 election narrowly, continuing aggressive policies that shaped the U.S. international relations for years to come. 2008. The 2008 vice presidential debate featured Senator Joe Biden of Delaware and Governor Sarah Palin of Alaska. Biden argued that the Bush administration's economic policies had led to significant challenges for American families, citing the subprime mortgage crisis and rising unemployment. He called for oversight and a rescue plan focused on the middle class, stating that we've seen Wall Street run wild due to excessive deregulation. Palin countered by accusing Democrats of failing to provide real solutions in Congress and emphasized the need for new leadership in her anti-establishment ways. She criticized previous administrations' handling of the economy and highlighted John McCain's commitment to reform. The federal government has failed to provide the oversight we need, she often stressed. She stressed to lower taxes to stimulate growth. Biden highlighted his experience working across party lines. He would unite leaders in Washington to deal with the 2008 recession. Palin positioned herself as a fresh voice, emphasizing her governor track record. On healthcare, Biden warned that millions would not be covered under McCain's plan in healthcare, while Palin defended it as promoting competition through tax credits and other ways. The 2008 election was polarizing, focused heavily on economy and healthcare amid the recession because so many people were unhappy with the economy. Ultimately, Barack Obama and Joe Biden won, marking a significant shift in American political leadership in wanting change and reinforcing the role of the vice presidency through active engagement in both domestic and international issues. 2012. The 2012 vice presidential debate featured Vice President Joe Biden and Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. The discussion centered on foreign policy, particularly Iran's ambitions and the state of the U.S. economy after the 2008 recession, often with a lively debate between them. Biden argued that the Obama administration's stance on Iran was the most effective in history, emphasizing the unity of international allies, including Russia and China. He asserted that Iran was not close to developing a nuclear weapon, saying there is no chance that the Iranians have it at this point. He maintained that the administration consistently communicated a strong stance against a nuclear-armed Iran without resorting to war. In contrast, Ryan criticized Biden's assertions, claiming that the administration had undermined sanctions and allowed Iran to accelerate to its nuclear weapons capabilities. He expressed concern that the lack of credible military option had embodied Iranian leaders, stating we need to change their minds so they stop pursuing nuclear weapons. Ryan stressed that a nuclear-armed Iran would trigger a regional arms race and pose a regional threat, as well as to the United States allies in those areas. As the debate shifted to domestic issues, questions were raised about the unemployment rate, which was not low. Biden cited that the recovery efforts undertaken by the Obama administration pointed to the successful rescue of the auto industry and tax cuts for the middle class. He expressed confidence that the unemployment can be below 6%, but did not specify a timeline. Ryan countered by highlighting the struggles of American families, citing high unemployment rates in places such as Pennsylvania. He criticized the administration's economic policies, asserting that the country was heading in the wrong direction, with job growth stagnating and more Americans living in poverty. Ryan outlined a 5-point plan for economic recovery, focusing on energy independence, skills training, and small business support. The 2012 presidential election was a stark contrast in policy and vision between the candidates, reflecting the deep division between the two parties and the slow and growing economy. In the end, President Obama and Vice President were re-elected, but with less electoral votes than 2008. Biden's win continued his long career in politics and continued the Obama administration's stance on climate change and foreign policy. 2016. The 2016 vice presidential debate took place between Governor Mike Pence of Indiana and Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. The debate highlighted key issues such as foreign policy, domestic concerns, and contrasting styles of the candidates. Tim Kaine opened by criticizing Donald Trump's controversial statements and lack of experience. He emphasized the importance of strong alliances, particularly in the context of national security, and questioned Trump's approach to foreign policy, arguing it would jeopardize America's standing in the world. Mike Pence countered by defending Trump's candidacy, portraying him as a leader who would prioritize America's interests. Pence asserted that the Obama administration has failed to address key issues, especially from ISIS, and promised a Trump administration would focus on defeating terrorism and restoring America's strength abroad. As the debate transitioned to domestic issues, Kaine highlighted the importance of healthcare, education, and the economy. He criticized the GOP's plans to repeal the Affordable Care Act, arguing it hurt millions of Americans who rely on it for coverage. Kaine appealed to voters by emphasizing a vision of progress. Pence, in response, argued that the Obama administration's policies had led to economic stagnation and job losses. He positioned the Trump campaign as a solution to these issues, advocating for tax cuts, deregulation, and support for small businesses. Pence stressed that a change in leadership was necessary to help the economy. Kaine interrupted Pence a lot, and it led to many declaring Mike Pence as a more respectful person and understanding of the issues. The debate showcased stark contrast in ideology, with Pence representing the Trump campaign's populist approach and Kaine embodying the Democratic commitment to traditional progressive values. Ultimately, Donald Trump and Mike Pence won the election, marking a significant shift in American politics and the rise of populism in government. 2020. The 2020 vice presidential debate featured Senator Kamala Harris of California and the current vice president Mike Pence. A key focus was the COVID-19 pandemic, with Harris criticizing the Trump administration's response, claiming it led to unnecessary suffering and death. She stated the American people deserve a plan, emphasizing the need for a comprehensive strategy to combat the virus. These include mask mandates and more use of vaccines. Pence defended the administration's handling, asserting that they had acted swiftly and the vaccines were on the way, and Trump did an early ban on China. He emphasized the importance of reopening the economy, stating we got to get America back to work. The debate also covered the economy, which is the worst since the Great Depression, with Harris advocating for policies to support the middle class and small businesses and a COVID-19 relief package, while Pence pointed to tax cuts and deregulations as ways to stimulate growth and allow the economy to open. Pence had a lot of control of the debate, but Harris had a lot of attention due to the pandemic issues affecting many Americans around the country. Overall, the debate showed stark contrast between the two candidates on the economy and issues, reflecting the broader divisions in American politics leading up to the election. Many voters were seeking change, which contributed to the victory of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Their administration brought a new approach to the handling of the pandemic and addressing various national issues. Kamala Harris made history as the first female vice president and faced a uniquely divided Senate, often breaking ties more frequently than any of her predecessors, all while navigating a rising cost of living that impacts American families amid an increasing polarized political landscape. 2024. The 2024 vice presidential debate took place between Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio and Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. A wide range of topics were discussed, including climate change, immigration policies, the economic high cost of living, and the state of democracy, foreign policy amid new conflicts, and much more. As tensions escalated with Iran attempting to attack Israel and wars breaking out in the Middle East, both candidates faced significant questions. Vance aimed to frame Walz's running mate Kamala Harris as ineffective in managing these conflicts, while Vance countered by positioning Trump as a leader who could restore order. Vance raised concerns about manufacturing jobs being shipped overseas and acknowledged climate change, but argued it disrupts the job market. Walz criticized Republicans for focusing on immigration without addressing it, and asserting that the current approach is inadequate without Congress support. Vance emphasized the rise of cost of living, blaming the Biden-Harris administration for failing to resolve it. When Walz questioned Vance about Trump potentially losing the election and not accepting the results, Vance highlighted what he called the Democrats' reliance on cancel culture and censorship through tech giants, showing both Democrats and Republicans accuse each other of threatening democracy in the election. Walz and Vance also addressed the sensitive issue of abortion and gun control. Vance stated that the state should have the freedom to adopt different ideologies, while Walz says it's a sensitive topic that the government shouldn't be involved in. Vance portrayed himself as someone with evolving political views that has led to success, and Walz made himself look experienced and understanding. J.D. Vance engaged in more interviews than Tim Walz before the debate, allowing him to elaborate on issues during the debate. Despite the contentious topics, the debate remained civil, showcasing two contrasting views for the country. Vance articulated his positions clearly, but the deep political polarization indicates the 2024 election will likely be closely contested in just a few key states. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more content, and don't miss my video on President's reaction to Lincoln's assassination. It's an intriguing look at history, and I'll see you soon.